Good afternoon, everyone. For today, we will be discussing about Bloom's taxonomy of learning objectives. I am Rodellen V. Mendoza, and I will be accompanied by Mr. Aris Rodriguez. Sir Aris,
Good afternoon, everyone.
thank you so much. And now, we will be talking about what is taxonomy of learning domains, or what is Bloom's taxonomy of learning objectives. It is created by Benjamin Bloom in 1956 and published as a kind of classification of learning outcomes and objectives. It aims to help teachers and students to study well and to teach well. It provides different strategies to where students can easily learn the topic and to where teachers can easily assess students' learning. So, Bloom's taxonomy of learning has three domains, namely cognitive or knowledge-based, psychomotor or skills-based, and affective or affective-based, which deals with our emotions, feelings, and attitude. And for today's lesson, we will be discussing about cognitive or the knowledge-based domain. The knowledge-based domain is designed to help teachers understand and implement a standard-based curriculum. It is used to classify instructional learning and activities that can be used to achieve objectives. It is also used to know which assessment will work in order for the teachers to know how much learners mastered the objectives. And lastly, the cognitive domain aims to develop mental skills and the acquisition of knowledge of an individual. Meaning to say, the knowledge-based domain focuses on how much a teacher can help students assess their mental ability and also to students for them to know what kind of strategy will work best for them in order to master their mental ability. But there were two versions of Bloom's taxonomy of learning. The other one is the original, which was made by Mr. Bloom himself in 1956, and the other one was made by Mr. Lorin Anderson, as the student of Mr. Benjamin Bloom, together with his team in 2001. Changes were fairly minor, but there are these three major changes that ever happened to the taxonomy. First is their terminologies. The revised version changes the names of each of the 6 levels. The lowest level of the original is knowledge was changed into remembering, and it is also important to note that in the original they used nouns and now in the revised they now used verbs. It is because the name of the major cognitive processes were changed to indicate action because thinking implies active engagements. That's why they changed it from noun into verb. Another changes in structure. As we can see, the top 2 levels are essentially swapped from the old to the new version. The revised taxonomy moves the evaluation stage down a level and the highest element become creating. This change was made because the taxonomy is viewed as a hierarchy reflecting increasing complexity of thinking. And creative thinking, which is the creating level, is considered a more complex type of learning or form of thinking than critical thinking or the evaluation level. Another change they say was emphasis. There's a change in emphasis because they said that the revision emphasized the use of taxonomy as a tool of alignment and curriculum planning, instructional delivery and assessment, and additionally, the revision aimed at a broader audience. It is said that the original taxonomy was viewed as a tool best applied at younger grades. But the revised version is more universal and easily applicable at elementary, secondary, and even at adult training. For the originals, Bloom's taxonomy of learning, we have 6 levels of expertise, namely knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. For knowledge, we have keywords like defines, recalls, names, enumerates, labels. For comprehension, we have explains, describes, summarizes, discusses. Application has keywords like applies, demonstrates, produces, illustrates, and uses. For analysis, we have compares, contrasts, categorizes, classifies, calculates. And syntheses have composes, constructs, creates, designs, and integrates. And lastly, for evaluation, we have keywords like appraise, evaluates, judges, concludes, and criticizes. And now, we will be discussing about the revised Bloom's taxonomy. And for the first part, for the first three parts or cognitive processes will be discussed by me, and it talks about our lower order thinking skills, while the latter three will be discussed by Mr. Rodriguez. So the first one will be remembering. When we say remembering, it recalls previous learned information, just like the knowledge cognitive process in the original Bloom's taxonomy. It aims to recall, define, and name previous learned information. So the example can be name the seventh president of the Philippines. So you only have to answer, or students only have to answer based on who they remembered to be the seventh president of the Republic. The keywords are define, describe, identify, label, recall, recognize, select, and state. The technologies that can be used are bookmarking, flashcards, rote learning based on repetition, or the ones where we keep on letting students memorize words that they are not familiar with in order for them to remember it easier in the future. The next cognitive process will be understanding. When we say understanding, it makes sense out of the information. It is something deeper than remembering. For example, distinguish different geometric figures, meaning to say you have to answer the question based on how you understand something and not just on how you remember those figures. Keywords can be distinguish, estimate, explain, paraphrase, and summarize. The technologies that can be used to measure understanding is create an analogy, participating in cooperative learning, and taking notes together with internet search and storytelling. Of course, storytelling is a very good example of understanding to where we can let students to tell a different kind of story, or to explain something based on what they understand in the previous lesson. And lastly, the cognitive process under the lower order thinking skills will be applying. Applying is the use of learned concepts in a new situation. Applying, apply. Okay? Example can be demonstrate a dance step. So once you understand how the whole dance process thing goes, you can easily apply it or demonstrate it in front of the class. Keywords are apply, compute, demonstrate, modify, relate, use, or solve. The technologies that can be used to measure how much students can apply will be collaborative learning, creating a process, blog, and practice. And that will be all for this part. Moving on, we will be having Mr. Aris Rodriguez for the three more cognitive processes, and which tackles about our higher order thinking skills and also our knowledge dimensions that is also part in the revised Bloom's taxonomy of learning objectives or learning domains. That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodellen. Now we're going to proceed to the next discussion, which is about higher order thinking skills, which covers the analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Now let's move on to number 4, analyzing. Take information apart to understand the organizational structure. Here, it is very important that we separate the elements of a topic in order to make it more understandable. And here, our example is differentiate for formative and summative assessment, wherein we can analyze this easily by separating the formative and the summative assessment. And then we're going to list down the differences and the characteristic of these two separately. So the keywords that we can use here are analyze, break down, contrast, categorize, separate, differentiate. And the technologies that we can use are fishbowls, debating, questioning what happened, run a test, wherein we are considering also, or we are categorizing which are the facts and which are the inferences, okay? So let's proceed to the number 5, evaluating, critically examining and judging ideas. In short, we became critics here because we are telling the worth of someone or something, like defending a research proposal, wherein you need to review your entire proposal in order for you to know its strengths and weaknesses. And it will also tell you if it will pass or fail, or if it is really worth it for you to continue it as a research. So the keywords that we can use in evaluating are defend, justify, critic, conclude, explain, support, evaluate. And the technologies are survey, wherein we are getting the pulse of our respondents, and blogging, of course, wherein we can weigh the significance of ideas because or informations, because we have a lot of things to consider. We have a lot of references like that. So that is for evaluating. Excuse me. So for number 6, it is creating. Use information to create something new. And here, it is very important that we build structure from diverse elements, like combining the small pieces of information in order for us to create a bigger context. And the example here is create a lesson plan. And we know that in creating a lesson plan, there's a lot of things to consider, like the type and numbers of students, the teaching philosophies, the psychological theories, the lesson, the time, and many more. And if we will combine all of these elements, we can surely have an effective and a powerful lesson plan. So other keywords to be used here on creating: composed, plan, design, revise, organize, generate, modify. And the technologies that we can use are create a new model, write an essay. Because here we are giving importance to small information, because we believe here that once this information combines, it can create something new, unique, material, or concept. Okay? Now we're here on knowledge dimension. So it is one of the two dimensions of the revised Bloom's taxonomy, the type of knowledge. So number 1, it is factual. Basic elements must know to be acquainted with a discipline. So this could be terminologies or specific details. And this can answer the questions that begins with who, what, when, and where. Like what we see on our screen, which is who is the father of biology. And if you know the answer, you can just say Aristotle, as simple as that. So the other type of knowledge is conceptual, wherein it is interrelationship among basic elements with larger structure that enables them to function together. And here it tells about the concepts, the generalization, the principles and the theories that is needed in a discipline. So commonly, this answer the questions that begins with what. Like our example, what makes the earth to have different season? So in order for us to answer this, we need to consider a lot of things like the earth itself, its revolution, its axis, and so more. So if we're gonna see those information separately, it will not make a sense. But if we combine those information in explaining a complex idea, we can surely have a concept that will help us answer this kind of question. The third one, procedural. It is how to do something, method of inquiry, techniques, and methods. Wherein this is definitely about delivering the process on performing a discipline. And here it is answering the question that starts with how. Like our example, how to create a research paper. We know that in creating a research paper, we are following a step-by-step procedure. We cannot proceed, for example, to the stage 3 if we're not done with the first and second one, right? So that is the concept of procedural, to give instruction on how to do something. And then the last one is the metacognitive type of knowledge, which is about awareness and knowledge of one's own cognition. It is requiring to have reflective knowledge and strategies on how to solve problems through understanding oneself and the context. So our example here is why teaching is the most suitable profession for you. So well, you can understand this or you can answer this by understanding and reflecting on yourself. And then you need to try to construct ideas in order for you to reason out. As teachers, we shouldn't only focusing on asking what questions to our students, because here it seems that we're just checking if our students know something about our topic. Because here there are some specific terminologies that we are expect them to hear from them. Unlike if we're gonna let them to answer how and why questions, it will allow them to think critically and reflect on something in order for them to provide unique and diverse answers. As a summary, here are the 2 dimensions of revised Bloom's taxonomy. The first one is the cognitive process dimension, which is referring to the mental process involved gaining of knowledge and comprehension. On the other side, we have the knowledge dimension, which is pertaining to the type of knowledge. So to connect these 2, we have an example here, and it is students will be able to differentiate qualitative and quantitative research. So here, differentiate is the verb that is representing the cognitive process dimension. And in this case, it is analyzing, because we need to analyze here the difference between the qualitative and quantitative research. So we need to separate these 2 for the better analyzation. And then another keywords here are qualitative and quantitative research. And these are the noun phrases that are representing the knowledge dimension, the conceptual type of knowledge. Why? Because quantitative research and qualitative research can be composed of small informations or supporting details that could provide a concept on how can we differentiate these 2 type of research. So by considering these 2 dimensions, we can have or we can enhance our cognitive skills. So that's it.
And that's it for today's video. I hope you learned a lot from it. Once again, this is Rodellen Mendoza.
And I'm Aris Rodriguez. Thank you for watching.